Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'll be making, as you can see from the title and from the thumbnail, a One Piece video. I personally been a fan of One Piece since the very beginning of the Wano arc in the manga. And after I gave it a chance, I immediately fell in love with it. I fell in love with this character, with his world, with his power system. I essentially fell in love with everything. And now I want to get closer to the fandom of the series. There's been a bunch of content creators I've been watching from YouTube. One in particular is King of Lighting, and his main deal of like reactions and power scaling. And although I'm not going to make a top 30 anytime soon, I simply don't have time for that, I will dip my toes in the power scaling aspect and show my opinion with this video. So why am I making a video power scaling the Straw Hats? Well, it is mostly because I think there are some things that people may find strange about my opinions, and by talking about the Straw Hats, you naturally let me talk about some other characters so I can kind of put my foot in the water of power scaling without going all the way and being a bit overwhelmed like a top 30. Now, before we get to the video seriously, I want to say this right now. The Monster Trio is the Monster Trio. Of course, Luffy's at the top, followed up by both Sanji and Zoro. That won't change, there's nothing weird about it. I'm not going to be like here like, well, maybe blah 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 blah. And if you want to know my opinion on Zoro versus Sanji, well, I think the way all the writers, they're like pretty much completely equal, but the way that I see it, I think Sanji is like a tiny bit better, mostly because of his fighting style, his speed, and that together with his insane like durability buff, I think is better. But nevertheless, he's like equal to Zoro. That will remain the case probably for the rest of the series. And now we also technically doesn't even start because the weakest member of the Sword Hat crew, I'll say it's pretty obvious, is Chopper. Chopper hasn't done anything since honestly about as long as Robin, but Robin still has like her moments every now and then, and of course he has a big thing on one of itself. The besides that he has like some things in like Dress Rosa every now and then. As opposed to Chopper that hasn't done anything since Enies Lobby. Yeah, he attacked Queen and like I guess hurt him, but let's be honest, that's not impressive like at all. And now we finally get to the real part of the list. So who will be the second weakest Straw Hat? Well, up next is Brook. And this is not dissing Brook at all. I actually been quite impressed with Brook in this arc. His abilities are actually quite versatile. Both him being so solid, which he can pass through enemies to freeze, and the ways that he uses his eyes. Of course, he beats normal Jaiba in basically one attack, which is somewhat impressive. And it's actually Brook's placement here is actually more of a diss to the next person instead of being really a diss to Brook itself. I can actually see a pretty good argument to say that Brook is actually better than the next person that we're going to be talking about. He's a lot more versatile. Funny enough, probably has better defenses, maybe, and of course a lot bigger of an area of effect. But who is this person I compare Brook to? Well, next up is Frankie. Frankie actually has the opposite effect of Brook for me. Actually being kinda disappointed in Frankie. Of course he passes to Biropo, which of course he fights a Toby Roper, which Brooks didn't do, but he seems to have like almost the most problem except for Nami and Usopp fighting one of them. This is the part of the series that like a lot of characters are getting to weapon metal, and when it comes to that, Frankie does actually have a lot of defenses, which I expected to have. And his artillery is kind of lacking. Like, think of what he did in the Sasuke fight. He fight with a sword, which is not really good at doing. He says so himself. He used his guns, general left. And even when I think he used the rockets, so just they blew inside his shield. All of them makes me think that besides vertical being, like a lot of Frankie's artillery aren't that useful anymore, and therefore they're like heavily limits Frankie when it comes to fighting. He had to like outsmart and Sasuke to hit him in a weak spot to even win that fight. I personally think Frankie had way too much difficulty, and again, I'll say that if you put Brook against Sasuke, I don't say he has easier time fighting Sasuke, but I mean perhaps because he could make a lot of ice wall to stop the helicopter form of Suzuki, and he'll be better up close because Brook actually knows how to use a sword. But I think it's more of a matchup thing, so I'm still going to keep Frankie in this position. Now, next up is where the list might get a little bit crazy. Next up is Usopp. So, Usopp does fire to Piropo and doesn't do a lot of damage, not to mention that page 1 has a lot of arguments to say that he's the weakest one. I believe he's the youngest and he's the one that's been consistently more beat up, like he gets in more fights and always loses or gets like knocked down. And he got taken out by Big Mom in one punch. Our concurrence feels punched by Big Mom, but still just one punch. So why am I putting Usopp this high on the list? Well, the same reason why I'm being disappointed in Frankie. Versatility. If you want to talk about versatility, Usopp's your guy. Like, he has a pot plant for like everything that you can think of. And the combo potential is like I saying, both with other Straw Hats and Usopp himself. Like you see, if he shoots like all of his streaks, the opponent will very easily be overwhelmed. There's ways that he could do to like blind opponents, to bind them, to actually do hits, to defend himself from mobility. There's so much things that Usopp can do. Not to mention that we've seen over and over and over again that Usopp's durability is kind of insane. Like, he consistently gets his bones broken over and over and just kind of gets up, heals for the next arc, or doesn't even heal in the middle of a fight, gets beat up even worse, and just keeps going. I know this mostly a gag, but still, I believe it is a feat that puts him this high on the list. And next up is a part that I might get a lot of flack for this, not because of who I'm going to say, but because of who I'm not going to say. Because next up is Robin. And good for Robin for getting this high up on the list. Her above seeing one arc, I understand. But still, both part of the reason that she's up here and not higher is because of her fight with Black Maria. There is quite a lot to say that you might be able to say that Black Maria is the strongest Super Robo, mostly because of her bounty. I believe she has the highest one, or one of the highest, and her abilities of be able to constrict and her fire thing, so she can lead up to make you less mobile, together with her webs, and her poison, not to mention that she herself says that she is a fighter, so she has some hand-to-hand combat too. And so she gives Robin a lot of trouble, which is why she's not higher. Not to mention that even though she got a lot of power-ups, those, at least Giganto comes with a caveat. We don't know the like full extent of Demonio. It is pretty strong, but like we don't really know how long it can last. Like, it is literally just one attack or like a couple of minutes, like 2 minutes, and then she is tired. Because we know that after Demonio runs out, she's like basically unmovable. Like, she can't move at all. So, not to mention Giganto just leaves with a big target. But Fishman Cavalry really helps. It really puts a lot more oomph in her power that she desperately needed. She had the range, she had the area of effect, she had pretty much everything, but still, she was factor. And Fish McAvoy finally fixes that problem. So now Robin is a big contender in this list. Now, I can already hear people kicking and screaming, asking, why the hell is Nami this high up on the list? Well, the short answer, Zeus. Of course it's Zeus. Zeus is such an insane big power for Nami, you have no idea. Actually you do because we're shown, but still. If I am to believe that Zeus, even though he got a bit of his parts suck up, meaning he may be weaker, we don't know by how much. So I might. So the potential that Nami has with Zeus is comically big. First of all, now that she has Zeus, she finally have something to do with a close range opponent. It's not much, but still, the fact that her camera attack can now turn into a mace, it is something that she can use, so I'm not going to discard it for nothing. And of course, not only does her lightning is stronger, now they basically can miss. Oh, you're a super fast character, oh, you think lightning is not a big deal, well, how about homing lightning? Again, if you believe Zeus is not that weak, even when he puts into Nami's climb attack, that means that Nami House has attacks that can tag characters like Kid and Law. Do you know how insane that is? And even if it's weaker, like what does it say? By how much? If it's the grid below, can she tag, let's say, Robin? Could she dodge it? How about the rest of the Double Robo? We actually saw that Oti couldn't. How strong is Oti? Is the strongest Double Robo because of the amount of damage that she took? Not to mention all of the others who will be able to shave away. Sasaki definitely can dodge, will be able to tank it. And if he could, Nami could just curve it to hit his underbelly. Do you see how strong Zeus is? Not to mention if he actually is that strong, Nami might actually be able to do both Fangora, I know that was Hera, but still, and God of Lightning Tenjin. Do you remember that? Look at the screen right now. Do you see this shit? How much damage that would do to Luffy if Luffy wasn't a mutual lightning? Like, Jesus Christ. That is like a comically large power up. Not to mention, there is things that Zeus might also buff that we still haven't seen yet. Like, remember Nami's Gust Sword? She loses like twice, so I doubt you remember, but still, there is a wind ability. There is also melee, which Zeus already buffs. And not to mention he's a clown, so he might actually be able to upgrade that to be like a lightning sword or better Gust Sword. Though to be fair, he won't be able to up her fire and ice abilities that she also have been used since. Honestly, since she first got the climb attack, I believe. Nah, she technically used it for her illusion ability for Gavamotana, or whatever it's called. But even so, the possibilities with Zeus are almost limitless. Now for the strongest Star Heads. Well, besides the Monster Trio, we don't talk about it right now. And it's of course Jinbei. Of course it is. He was a warlord for God's sake. But the main reason why he is this high up is because how easily he almost fatalized Husu. And I don't think part of that is Husu being weak. Remember that he was one of the ones of the top robots he was actually trying to, well, he says he was trying to get to the all-star position, like he was hyper for it. And he is a former CP Knight member. That together with his devil fruits, I'll say that he is probably in the high echelon of the Topiropo. Like maybe top 3, top 4, I'll say. And Chibi basically fertilizing. His Fang Pistol, Husu Fang Pistol blocking Jimmy blocked with his arm and basically only got a little bit of a cut. So he was like, okay, I guess I dodge it. But later on in the fight, he takes one to the face with basically no damage. Jinbei's Jinbei has enough speed to get in with close combat with Huzu, and then that's where it gets nasty. Both the shoulder throw, the shark whip, like everything, Huzu couldn't do anything. Jinbei fertilized it to the point that Huzu was scared of water droplets. He had to dodge water droplets. Jinbei, using full body armor haki in a defensive way, which is probably the correct way to use it because it's finally worked, broke Husu's finger, probably while he's using his strongest attack. Is it a attack or thing piece of which Jinbei also fought alive, so take a pick. And I believe that this is nowhere near Jinbei fighting a serious fight. Now you might say, but he used Vagabond Drill, his strongest technique. Although this might be headcanon, I will say I believe the reason why he used Vagabond Drill was to get the fight as quickly as possible and make sure that Zuzu would stay down because he was sick and tired of hearing him talk. For valid reasons, of course. I'm pretty sure he really didn't need it. A couple more shoulder throws or another technique would probably done the trick. He used Vagabond Drill just to make absolutely sure. And not to mention the Jinbei, this is Jinbei outside of water. And when he's in water, oh boy. I don't know, maybe Sergeant or they might have to watch out for that. Like, did you see the area of effects? He was able to wield water that could flood the entirety of the main hall of Onigashima. If you've seen King of Lightning's video, you know how big that is. Like, a bunch of ores that can freely move in the main hall. And Jinbei can manipulate enough water to completely douse the things to put out the fire. Yeah. I'll say without a doubt, Jinbei is the strongest Straw Hat. Besides the monster trio. And this will be the end of this video. Don't worry, if you like this type of video, I will be making more One Piece content in the future. My next video might be, well, a little bit of a meme one, but I do believe it to be somewhat true. See you next time.